Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy's Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdocus Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely chaotic day?
Well, we did have some chaos going on up until just before we started. Um,
One of the
essentially,
programs we use needs to update it.
yeah, essentially updated OBS, and then it made things not work anymore.
Well, the people are already in the chat and having conversations, and Gamer Awesome is like, I'm white and nerdy, so that definitely made me smile and laugh. Looks like we've got a fellow Weird Al Yankovic fan out there.
Yeah, he just did a recent thing with Jimmy Kimmel where they did something
Jimmy
live
Fallon.
and they basically Skyped in.
Jimmy Fallon, you mean, right?
Yeah, yeah, that one of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had watched that as well. Thought it was pretty funny that he's like, "Hey, I'm doing the Tonight Show without pants. This is awesome."
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna like no. After this is all said and done, no one will ever wear pants again. Yeah. So I think we're a little laggy, but that has nothing to do with the internet or YouTube. It's just that I had to do some weird stuff to make the video happen. I don't even know what I did. I just pushed a bunch of buttons and just made it happen.
And Doug is, making further Weird Al references of, do you like Kirk or do you like Picard? And
Mm.
Doug and I are definitely on opposite sides of the fence there, because I'm a Picard guy and he's a Kirk dude.
Yeah, he does like the original series. My kids would say, these graphics are terrible. Like they don't even know what special effects are. So I think we're talking about chaos tonight.
Indeed, in this time of rife and turmoil, as the world is in apocalyptic frenzy, now's the perfect time to talk about chaos.
Uh, Besides, I'm going to throw you both through a loop, and I'm going to say Cisco. So ha.
Well, I like Cisco too, so I'm not gonna argue there.
So chaos kind of takes a big part in our homebrew world that we use, sort of. Although, I mean, we haven't really quantified it per se. It's just every time we want to have something screwy to have happen or go on, and we don't really want to explain it, we're like, chaos magic did it. We've replaced the wizard did it with chaos magic.
Right. Well, we've got the chaos magic. There's a section of our world that it's rather undefined and rather unexplored through play, but we refer to it as the chaos wastes. Um, you know, who knows whether the current campaign, if we want to venture into there to some degree and see what's happening. Haven't really done much thought on it. I think Nate was more of in control of that section for a while.
Yeah, so oh yeah, also I feel like every third world has their own like every third campaign setting or world has a chaos waste. So it wasn't very originally named, but there's that. So chaos in our world takes the form of raw magic essentially that spontaneously happens because our world is a bunch of pocket dimensions that have kind of been sewn into the fabric of reality by the gods. So every time they made a mistake or they didn't like what happened or the direction of the current age or world was going, they create a pocket dimension, swept everything in, close it, locked it. But apparently there are side effects if you keep doing that over and over and over again. Fissures and fractures start happening, and raw magic begins seeping out of them into our world in the form of chaos storms, and that's why our chaos wastes is based off of. It's just a region that these storms are drawn to, or maybe where they're originating from, and then they muck with the world.
So I really enjoy that aspect of our world. I think the creation of all of these pocket dimensions and the rifts that have opened because of that, it makes that kind of that magic, that the extra planar stuff, a little bit easier. Not so much in a mechanical aspect that those spells are a lower level or what have you, but it means that for me as a DM, I get I have more of a reason to put extra dimensional travel in games, that much easier and whatnot. I can use them at lower levels and what have you, and it all makes sense in the actual world itself. But beyond that, we've got the chaos sorcerer. There's chaotic magic items. There's random roll charts. Chaos can be used and explored in so many different ways.
I mean, one of my favorite parts, I think, in 5e is the chaos charts for the wild magic sorcerer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had kind of an affinity for things like the Wand of Wonder. What is it? Wand of Wonder?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, like anything like that where you're just randomly rolling to see what happens has always been a lot of fun.
I had actually ran a game a while back, and I saw Fraginator in the chat, and he was actually in that game. But I ran a game for the fans, and I took that sorcerer wild magic table, and anytime he had a roll of a natural 1 or 2 or natural roll of a 19 or 20, I was rolling on that chart regardless of what was going on. There was a gnome who was trying to exploit wild magic, and he infused the entire town with essentially that chaos sorcery, and the game was hilarious because you use that chart with moderate degrees, but when you're rolling skill checks and all of a sudden wild magic is going off, or you're making attack rolls and wild magic is going off, all kinds of ridiculous can happen.
I feel like that's when you need bigger tables.
Yes, I would like to have multiple wild magic tables to be able to play around with as opposed to just the one. But it's definitely fun times. So Frag is even commenting on it.
It's like the only time he rolls high in a game. It's just.
But it didn't matter. You could roll low too, and Frag is definitely good at that.
True. Superpower. It's a.
Superpower. I would love to see the two of you guys have like a roll off. You guys both have poor dice luck.
Dice skills. Just bad at rolling dice. That's.
It is the first Monday of the month, so we have the announcement tonight. Not necessarily going to do it right now, but we're throwing it out there. We've got the monthly giveaway, the announcement of what is on the next month's giveaway, as well as this month. It is Doug's turn to run a game, and I've got the players selected for that. So the fan game is actually going to be on my son's birthday. It's going to be April 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I've got a list of those players to give, and definitely a handful of these names I recognize. So that's pretty cool.
So what you're saying is you would just rather play D&D than celebrate your son's birthday?
Well, normally when we would not be in the state of a world crisis, I would not be available because we were planning an escape room party. That's what my son had picked. But with the world in lockdown, or especially New Jersey in lockdown, that's absolutely not going to happen.
Yeah. Doug, I will totally break Will Wheaton with my bad rolls. Or maybe we just open an interdimensional rift by all three of us rolling at the same time. I don't know.
I've seen him roll 2 natural ones in a row.
I think I've done that with advantage or disadvantage, where I double won. Although one time at band camp, one time in the Saver Dice game, I did double 20 on an advantage for a survival check to skin a Yeti. Of course.
Man, you skinned that thing so well. Look at that. That's awesome.
Yeah. I skinned the shit out of that Yeti. There was like 3 Yeti pelts by the time I was done.
You can roll well, but when you tend to roll well, it is on the most inane things.
Or is the DM?
Well, that's a whole other thing. Your dice know if you're behind the screen or not.
Yeah. And I roll my dice open in the open, so
Oh
whatever
yeah,
happens, happens.
that is entirely true.
Let the chaos begin.
Oh, it's the duty of all gamers everywhere to prevent such a convergence of bad rollers. I don't know. I'd like to see what would happen if we, get a handful of these peeps together and see what actually happens. It's a chaos in its own.
Interdimensional space opens to Bizarro world
I don't know.
where bad rolls are good. We'll have to try that sometime.
I mean, it's
I don't
like
think Will's gonna be down.
no, probably not. We might not have enough.
It's gonna be like fucking nerds.
I don't know if we have enough street cred to wrangle Will Wheaton for that.
What are you gonna do? What are you going to do? So last week when me and Doug were on, we talked about law, and we're doing chaos today. And I know I talked a lot of like the idea of the planes of law and order in that one, which appealed to me more than like the planes of chaos for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
I do, and I also wrote the what do we write? The newsletter. That's the thing we write. So I wrote that earlier today, and that was kind of fun to break down for law. It's like I'm interested in doing it for chaos as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking about making a magic item. I've got a couple of things, but I'm like I had a really cool idea for a weapon, and the idea is great, but the problem is I don't want to do something that's going to slow down combat because it can already get clunky as it is. So I might just scrap my entire idea and go in another direction, or maybe I say, hey, DM's caution if you go to use this because it might, and then make another one that's a little bit less clunky. But I'm definitely going in the magic item direction for this one. I wasn't really, I haven't created anything mechanically for a number of newsletters, and I know for a while that was my job, that was my thing that I was enjoying, and I kind of veered away from it.
Yeah, there's not an entropy cleric domain, is there?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think there is. So maybe I'll do that for the newsletter for some chaos. I considered doing it for law, and I'm like, oh, jackass, there's an order domain. But at least I realized that before I started making anything.
So Tech and Motorcycle says, why does it say Patreon only? So during this whole pandemic, we have taken our typical Monday evening live chat, and that's normally Patreon only, and we have opened it up to everyone. And we just kind of have been a little lazy and have not made a new thing. But typically, it really is only for our patrons. But we want to give everybody something fun to do, an extra way to kind of hang out with us during this crazy time. So there you go.
Yeah, I did not create a new thumbnail for actually I've become really lazy with that because we outsource all of our thumbnails now to Alex from Critical Hit Publishing, and he does a really great job, so I don't have to even think about that anymore. Maybe we'll have to get him to throw one together for us for these. So, and also we got some other things coming up where we can talk about a little bit. Speaking of, we're doing these because the world's a little topsy-turvy.
Topsy-turvy.
Turvy, that's the word I was looking for. And crazy right now. So we're like, if we can give folks something to do for an hour, on a Monday night, why not? The other thing we are talking about doing, tomorrow we're going to discuss it officially in our Nerdarchy meeting and decide if we're going to do it or not. But we were thinking about bringing back the daily live chats. So it'll be me and a guest, from the community or doing something cool and nerdy. And we'll just babble for like 45 minutes, maybe an hour was what we're thinking. I just feel like, at this time with everything going on, people could just use some distractions, and seems like a thing. It seems like a thing to do.
So Tech and Motorcycles, welcome. It's awesome, time to be getting into, the particular hobby, and nerdarchy as a whole. We can't recommend D&D Beyond enough, so definitely look into it, even if you don't go into the paid stuff. Just the entry level stuff is entirely useful for beginning players. So definitely get into it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great resources over there, and I just discovered something new. There's an extension for Roll20 that someone made that lets you use your D&D Beyond character sheet right over on Roll20. So you don't have to like figure out how to make characters over there or do anything over there. Like all the role features are right there on your character sheet.
That's pretty awesome. I was actually, in D&D Beyond today, making my new character. Uh, Typically, Thursday night is Dawnbringers over on Mini Terrain Domain that I am a player in. While we are trying to, juggle some things in between season 3 and season 4, Jake is actually going to be running a one shot of Wildmount from the new book between Wizards of the Coast and Critical Role. So I will actually be playing a Fallen Asimar Echo Knight, and he is actually allowing me to play a Hollow one. And Dave, he absolutely loves the idea of I summoned the Echo and died that you came up with, and the Echo just remained conscious and stayed.
So you're playing the Echo and you summon yourself back.
So I am playing the Echo, and the Echo is the thing that is kind of undead. So I'm kind of toying around with how I want my voice to be.
You need a modulator. You need one of those voice modulators so you can do it. You can cheat and do it the easy way.
But actually, last Thursday's game, our final boss, Jeremy, actually did use a modulator, which was really awesome.
Yeah, Doug is talking about playing a barbarian when his turn is done. Oh man, I thought we are bringing back the half brother game.
Isn't he a barbarian in that game?
Oh, you know what? Maybe I don't know. I know he's a fire genasi, right?
You're a ranger and I'm a sorcerer. I still need to remake him because I don't know what happened to my character sheet.
Don't.
I mean, that was 2017 when we started that game. So
yeah, it was a little while ago. For sure.
I think that was before we had DDB. So
no. No, because I remember like the one character we played because we played several games that weekend. So we were at a convention, we were at Concoction, and staff writer Megan was there, and Doug was there, and it was us two plus Nate. And one of the games, I'm pretty sure, Doug ran the game where I just hit random.
Yeah, that is true.
On D&D Beyond, and it spit out a really awful character, and I played it. So.
Well, I looked through all of my DDB characters, and I could not find my character from that game. I looked through all of my character sheets that were saved here, so I don't know specifically what happened, whether I created it in a notebook that has just gone poof, or what. But I know that I'm a half elf sorcerer, and I'll figure everything else out from there.
So Jeremiah is using Roll20 and would like advice from. We're terrible people to ask, to be honest with you. If you go, I think even Jacob, you play with Jacob, and I think he's got some tutorials for Roll20.
I'm not sure. VTTs are definitely not our forte. And when I used Roll20, it was just a dice rolling program. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of times when we play games online, we just do theater of the mind. So we're not really doing anything with it. I mean, we can also mention this Sunday we have a game with Esper the Bard, which is kind of cool, and we'll be playing with him. And he the way he runs his game, it's like you're playing on a VTT, but you're not. I'm pretty sure he's just screen sharing like Adobe or something, just images, and he's just manipulating stuff. So it's like a very manual VTT. Like he's got to move our tokens and stuff, but it worked. It was cool. It definitely worked and it was fun. So we're gonna be doing that. And I didn't even realize like we scheduled that game for Easter. Not that it matters. Like time means nothing now. So. Right. It's just like there's no gatherings, no get-togethers, not doing any family stuff. I had to chase Ted's mom away and beat her with a stick the other night. It's like she was supposed to drop stuff off on the step and leave, and
right.
But she came in, and I'm like, "You're touching stuff. Get out! Like you're old and gonna die. Stop."
It is a very strange time. Very chaotic, if you will. Even when I've seen neighbors, like I've tried to be like, all right, I'm going to be super respectful about the, about distancing. Even people in my own neighborhood. I'm really trying to not go anywhere unless I absolutely have to. But like when I'm out just to get sunlight and exercise and what have you, like I'm like, all right, well, there's 6 feet, but I'm going to stay well apart. Just so that and I know that there's no chances. And if people don't seem like they want to have a conversation, all right, see you later, and I just go back inside. But I've talked to a couple of neighbors, but for the most part, it's like talk on the phone, talk via an online hangout tool. There's plenty of options. And it's stay in contact with people. Don't completely shelter yourself away. But it's challenging.
So Tech and Motorcycles asks, how does the Beyond 20 extension work? I don't know. It's pretty much like Magic. You add the extension, and as long as you have D&D Beyond open, it just pulls in the information. And you just click on your modifiers on your character sheet for D&D Beyond because it adds a bunch of stuff to it, and then it'll do the rolling and stuff for you. So it's very cool, and it was super easy too. Like I said, it's just an extension. Download it, and then once you open up both Roll20 and D&D Beyond, they just talk to each other. It works really good. Also, Philadelphia Piper. The game has not happened yet. It's going to happen this Sunday, whatever that date is. And I think we're doing 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll be, if you follow our social media, you'll see. I haven't shared it out, but I'll be sharing it out, and especially once we get closer to the game, I'll be sharing it out. So, and then if you miss it live, you can always check out the recording. So we did a session 0. But Esper tricked us into a full-on game with the bait and switch, which not that we mind. It was fun, and I will tell you, one of the characters did not make it. So.
It was utterly ridiculous. Like he's like, oh, well, let's do one scene and see how things work.
Yeah.
And apparently, one scene versus multiple combats. They're apparently one and the same to Mr. the Bard. And I was kind of shocked. And then when my buddy died, I was like, "What the flip?"
Now you
session 0, man.
You're giving away the spoilers. Now they know it's not you.
Oops, my apologies.
Don't worry. Ted just refers to himself as my buddy all the time.
Well, But we have a question from Dean Weiss. It says, "What's your favorite homebrew supplement that isn't one of our own?" So I look at that as, what qualifies as homebrew. Are you saying third party, or are you just saying specifically homebrew? Because I haven't seen a whole lot of homebrew stuff. I tend to go to more, published third party stuff. So
it's got to be third, just with the way they have to mean third party published, because otherwise you probably wouldn't have access to it. So
I have a lot of really cool stuff here. So for me, it's more of like the flavor of the week. What new thing have I gotten to kind of play around with? So I've got a book of random roll charts that I've recently, gotten that I tend to have a lot of fun with. It makes things for me as a DM easier. Of like, oh, well, I need to put a couple things in this room. Great. I need a couple names. Okay, I can go off of that. Great. And it's a whole book full of them. So that's over there, so I don't remember exactly what the name of it is, but it's on my on my ready to play with stuff. So that's my current go to.
So V from the Crafting Muse runs a game on Cobalt Press, which is their stuff. She's running Moorgrave. So
Margrave, yeah.
yeah, so that's all third party stuff that you can check out and actually see them play. If you probably enjoy that if you like live play games for sure. Maybe Fraginator. Frag's got your back, Ted. Just so you know. It's good. You gotta be good to your GM, and Frag plays in a lot of your games. A lot of times. So you know what? We started mentioning that you're running the game, and but I don't think you listed. I think I cut you off before you listed the names.
Oh well, I would say I was just teasing it out, and it's not actually my day. It's Doug's game.
Oh, Doug's. Okay.
Yes, Doug's game is April 26th. I will still be doing some kind of family thing that will be with the kids. I don't know. If we give it over to him, it's probably going to be a lot of walking around while he plays Pokemon Go and doing some board games. But the list, and the way we always do this is I grab a list of 10 people. Whoever is set up to be the DM emails them out. Says, hey, the first X number of people to respond that can. Typically, from the list of 10, we don't get a full game. It's happened like once or twice to me. But the players that we've got selected, I've got Christopher Dravis, DM Kenneth, Matthew Moore, Ryan Grenier, Logan Linder, David Erlandson, Brian Colin, Bert Thedem, Brad Harrison, and Daniel Stanley. So the list has actually already been passed to Doug. He will email them out in the near future if he hasn't already. So if you're on that list and you can game with Doug, great. He'll be happy to have you. It's not going to be a broadcast game. It's just play online and have some fun.
Just a group of nerds getting together and throwing some dice for a couple hours. Well, Comrade, I would say right now is probably like the golden age or best time to get into online games because pretty much that's the only way people are playing. So
now's the chance to get on and figure it out. I personally prefer playing in the same room, but that's not an option at all right now. And I've gotten used to the typical. All right, let's just sit down and play online. There is something that's kind of missing there, but you get to play with people that are all over. The group that I play with on Thursdays, we're basically like a family at this point, so pretty awesome.
No, patron is not required. We have a newsletter. It's if you go to our website, you can find a sign up sheet to the newsletter. Most of our videos, nearly all of our videos have it, except for the live plays, or the live streams that we're doing like this do not. But if you go to any of our regular videos, you can find the newsletter and just sign up for it. And basically, within the newsletter, there's a second email list to sign up for, and we literally only use that to pick names from. So that you can get on that list, and we pull random. We take random names from that list, and then we add the patrons to it. To those, and if you happen to be on that list and the patrons, then your name goes in twice. And every month we just pull out 10 names and send out those to those 10 people in the first 5 or 6 or 4, however many the players the DM once gets back to them. Then they're in the game. Many times, like Ted said, we don't get a full table and we end up picking from someplace else. A lot of times we go to patron just because the patrons just respond really quick. But sometimes we'll go in Discord or into the Company of the Nag group over on Facebook. We've also been known on random live chats to be like, hey, we need a player, and whoever gets to me first is in. So there's different ways.
Wow, that is awesome, team. So last year he won a drawing, and now Ed Greenwood is writing a short story about the character that they created. That is a fantastic story. For me, most of my stories that stick out the most are kind of a result of either a really successful or a really bad roll. So we've had a couple of times where Dave has had to make a saving throw, and he's like, "I need like a 5 to pass," and he just casually tosses the die out onto the table, and it's like he rolled a 3 or a 4, and everybody just kind of like, laughed. And then the time that we were play testing, uh, uh, I'm totally blanking the name of the game. The game that you ran a 12 session game.
Other Skies?
Yeah. What system is that?
Open Legend?
Open Legend. I'm like, it's not I Am Legend. What? That's all. What's stuck in my head. And then like Ryan rolled a d20, and because that game has exploding dice, whenever you roll the highest number on that die, you add that. To you take the maximum number, roll again, and keep going if you keep maxing out. And Ryan dropped on a knowledge check. He rolled a 71.
It's a frying trait. It's a frying trait for sure.
So utterly, hysterical. I mean, there's a lot of great stories, and I could probably just do a whole live chat of sharing some of the great things that have happened. Either fantastic stories or descriptions that DMs and players have used over the years, but things that have stood out, memorable deaths. There's been plenty of those. The Minotaur getting skewered with the lance, the failing a jump roll and landing in lava. Both of those are also Ryan's character.
I also had a character die by jump, with a lava jump. But that's because Jacob from XP to level 3 made me roll to make a jump check, which that's not actually how it works. But whatever. He was the DM, so I just went with it. And I critted a failure. I had to rage in order to not have disadvantage because I was playing a Berserker, the worst barbarian archetype that there is, and I had used Berserk earlier. So I was at disadvantage, so I raged in order to just make a normal roll. And everyone's like, "Oh, you raged, you got advantage." I'm like, "No, I don't, because I'm a Berserker and I'm exhausted." So I rolled a 1 into the lava, instant death.
Oh man!
But it was like it was only like a 10-foot jump, and my character is pretty strong, so it would have been an auto pass.
Well, in his game,
but in his game, absolutely, I agree. I did not question it when we were playing or nothing. I just break balls about it now after it's said and done.
Oh, absolutely. But
the best part is, we had a bunch of giant bats that would just fly us out too. It was like the most needless death ever.
Yeah, I mean those kind of things absolutely can happen, and they will stand out in your memory. We had a question from Edward Fleming. He's getting ready to run his first online game. Wants to know if we have any last minute pointers for him.
Pray no. Pretend you're not running. Pretend you're not broadcasting the game and just focus on your players and DMing and kind of ignore the chat. If you're playing live, unless you're playing a game where there's you're doing a lot of stuff with the chat. I mean, most of our games, that's how we kind of did it. Although, like when I ran the Scarlet Sisterhood, and I ran that game for about a year, because it was like 50-some sessions, 60 sessions, so a little over a year. So I wouldn't interact with the chat, but I always had it open, and I would look at it. So if someone said something cool, then I would slip it into the game. But other than that, I would mostly ignore it. And I think if you're just starting out broadcasting the game, I think you just focus on playing the game. There was also Peter Aguilar. If you had to assign everyone in Nerdarchy an alignment from the alignment table, what would you pick for each other?
So, I would put Dave, reluctantly at like chaotic good. There's times that he falls into the he's definitely on the chaotic spectrum. Just the way that you kind of like bounce back and forth on different things, but like your axiom on the good, neutral, evil. That's the part that tends to, blend back and forth
It's
every
just a
night.
spinner.
So where do you put me, sir?
um, let's see. I think like a neutral good.
That's probably where I would put myself.
I think
Uh,
Doug. I think Doug is lawful good.
you think he's lawful good?
I think so, or lawful neutral. He's very ordered and
I was gonna put him.
precise.
I was gonna put him as at lawful neutral.
Yeah.
He definitely seems more middle of the road.
Although I do believe the Conquest Paladin is my subclass, possibly. Good through tyranny. Yeah, I guess that's where we put it at. Let's see. Edward Fleming, we got that already. So if you have a question for us, just put a question in front of it, or tag us in it, or GM911, and we will more than likely get to it. So we're like 3/4 of the way through here.
Oh,
When's our next giveaway?
as I mentioned earlier, it is the first of the month, or the first Monday of the month, and therefore I do have a stack here that is going to be given out, and I have the next selection over there. So we've got basically a mega piezo pile here that we wanted to just unload all at once. So I'm going to announce that now because we're more than halfway through.
Yeah, let's go. You guys want to hear what we're giving away and what we gave away? I guess technically.
Yeah, so this is what we've already we've shown before. The name has already been selected. As always, if you want to get in on our patron giveaways, $1 a month on Patreon gets you on the list. Every month we randomly select one using the similar method to how we select the players. We just we add in the Game with Nerdarchy newsletter people in the list after I select the giveaway. So from TNT Laserworks, we've got these cool spinner dials. Whether you want them to use them to track hit points, spell slots, or what have you, they're pretty cool. I ran into them at PAX Unplugged. They seemed interested in giving us stuff, so I got a stack of them. So we're going to give one away every month, in addition to everything else. We've got the Deck of Many Worlds from Starfinder, Virtuous Villains, Cutthroat and Crew. We've got Stoneheart Valley. This is for Pathfinder, but it's from Frog God or Necromancer Games. Fields of Blood. And then we've got Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Gods and Magic, as well as the Extinction Curse. So all of this is one giveaway. I don't even want to try and tabulate what the cost is on it.
A bunch.
What was that?
A bunch.
A bunch, yes. So that is getting shipped across the seas to one Lodowick Butte, which I am very familiar with. He's been a patron for quite some time. So
he's the first fan I killed in a game. Matter of fact, I think he was my first 5e death altogether.
Well, that particular honor goes to our friend Mark at my table. So
it's true. Also, you don't have to be a patron to enter the giveaways. We have a form that you can download on our website and mail to us.
If you go to the website, go to contests and forms. You'll be able to download that. You then have to print it out, fill it out, mail it to our P.O. box, and I grab those, and add them to the list as well. Dave is 100% correct because all giveaways have to have a free option. We do have a couple people that do like to mail in every month, and I always make sure to add them to the list. And just a few months ago, we actually had our first time winner of those. So it has happened.
Yeah,
I'm gonna grab.
We don't have that happen too often, and it is a pain in the ass. It's just easier to give us $1 a month.
Yes, I mean between the ink, the paper, the stamp, But I digress. Do as you will. So if you want to get in on our next giveaway, you can do either of those things. Sign up for Patreon, mail out a letter, or heck, do both, and you will get a chance in there. So for our next one, the newest release of Dice Larial Silverhand's Explorer set. This is fresh from Watts, from our lovely friends over at Easy Roller Dice Company. We've got a cool dice tray complete with lid. Again, from TNT Laserworks, we have one of these cool counters. This one says "Keep calm and roll on." The natural 20 showing on the die. The giveaway from D&D that I grabbed at a convention. X marks the spot. The DM screen reincarnated, and from our friends over at Necromancer Games, 5th edition Foes. I'm very fond of this particular book. I've used a number of monsters in it, so definitely recommend that. But all of that is in the pile to be given away next month. First of the month, and we've already explained how you can get on that list to get your shot at winning that. All right, so I've done all of my necessary listing and reading and what have you.
The bookkeeping stuff.
Bookkeeping, that thing that I have to do here every month to make sure that we're doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing.
I'm reading a question here. Let's see. So for Patreon, can I ask, between you two, what character types do you lean on as your strong suits? I believe Ted leans towards where I'm going in this new awesome. So I think he's asking, what classes do we like?
Dave is kind of all over the place, but I tend to go with religious characters. I definitely favor clerics. Clerics can be played as frontline, rear. You can basically do just about anything you want with a cleric, depending upon what you choose as your race, as your background, and what domain you choose. So there's a lot of versatility that you put in them. Because they're a die 8 hit die, because you can put a high constitution, because you can choose multiple subclasses that give you access to the heavy armor. There is nothing to say that you couldn't step up there and be a tank, but you could absolutely stand in the background, in light or medium armor, and just be a blaster with a lot of the cool spell access that they get. Guiding bolt winds up raining pretty hefty. If you go light domain, you actually get access to fireball. So while you probably aren't going to completely keep up with the wizard, you can come close. But there's a lot of great cleric spells that allow you to kind of be a subpar wizard while still having access to heal. And then if you wind up going with some of the cool backgrounds and going with light armor, you can certainly fall into a rogue option as well if you want to go down those roads. So yeah, however you want to do it, the cleric can probably get you there.
Yeah, and then you can say cool things like, I'm not that kind of cleric. In the campaigns I've played a halfling ranger, I've played a kobold artificer, one of the UA versions, I think the second version, not the first one. I've played, in your game, I played a war wizard, a dwarven fighter. I'm playing in Esper's game, I'm playing a dwarf paladin. So I tend to try and go with what I haven't played before. In your game, I'm playing a rogue with a 1 level dip in fighter. So I try and see what have I played so far and do something different. And come up with different concepts and try and stretch my legs and my role playing a little bit.
So Alex Wolf has a cool question, and I think I've got a solid answer. This is, what class would you say would encompass an arcane boxer Gish subclass like Tifa Lionheart from Final Fantasy? I don't know if you played FF7, But if somebody wanted to play an arcane boxer, where would you go?
Well, first of all, I haven't played any of the Final Fantasy games. So, but an arcane boxer, huh? I don't. So, I don't think, I don't think it really exists, right? Like because the things that
There's
would make you do it, you'd want to do something with Monk probably, and
so. Oh, go ahead. I'll
and
let you.
I don't feel like the vibe that I'm getting from this. I don't think like the magic-y monk stuff really fits, right? It's not really enhancing your martial arts. It's just doing something extra.
So I look at that easy thing you could do if you want to stick to a single class. I would go Eldritch Knight and take Tavern Brawler as your feat. That's not going to get you as big a bump as you might like. But if you really want to push things, I would go Monk Eldritch Knight. And if you went high enough in Monk, I would actually go four elements. It's not the best, but it is the only magic oriented. Now we actually did have a post on our website of the four elements revisited, and I actually do really like what Steven did with that. And I would, if your DM would allow that, I would use that over the regular monk in this particular situation. But you'd have to let your DM would have to let you do that.
What about either a Wild Soul Barbarian or Storm Herald Barbarian with Tavern Brawler?
You could go that route, but I just think that's like the idea of barbarian is just a little out of that character's mindset. I know you didn't play it. I mean, it could definitely work. It's not really enough magic to really fulfill what she did, and I'm leaning heavily on the distant brain cells that remember playing that game eons and eons ago. Um, but I mean that's what I would look at.
So Heather wants to know: build a computer using zombies, undead, or magic mouths, logic gates, miniaturized. It was shrinking magics. Have you ever made any magical technology?
Well, I mean, there's the question of what is considered tech and what is just a magic item. I mean, I had a magic, uh, you know, a magic, machine that you guys had dealt with in my last game. It had you guys fiddled with it and awoke a whole bunch of different constructs. Trying to open up the portal to get out of Zoltan's lair. And I actually made the thing that's over there on the shelf.
Hmm.
It's the closest I've made, in a while.
I actually did a lot of magic machinery in the Other Skies game. It's not D&D, so it's a lot different. But the concept that we came up with was there we used airships and they other ships that flew using magic, and then there was a specific character build that would use magic, but they had to focus it through basically machines and build things and use it that way because the magic in that world is very unstable and there's side effects to just wielding raw magic, which we did have a player that was doing that as well. And what would happen is like when you wielded raw magic, you had a corruption score, which you could totally tap into to make your magic more powerful. But the problem was
Megan did.
yeah. But the problem was, as you did that, the chances of your corruption score growing was there, as well as we also used an insanity mechanic as well. So that made things interesting. I have to go back and see what the actual mechanics were, but that it actually worked really well, and I think we had fun with that.
So yeah, that would absolutely be great to revisit that game in some way, shape, or form. I love my little kobold character. Um, he was definitely a lot of fun, and there's some unknown questions because we all went different ways at the end. So
Yeah.
that was kind of crazy is what would happen. I was controlled during the battle and did a crap ton of damage to Megan's character. So I don't know how that character would react to my dude should we meet again. Um,
Oh,
but
yeah. Also, she was dipping heavily into the corruption by the end. So,
oh yeah, yeah.
so there's always that as well.
So
Um,
I'm gonna butcher this name because I'm not, you know, I'm whatever. But Sunken Seas says, "Can I ask a DM advice? I'm DMing my first game sometime this week. Yeah, just get it in there quick." Um, Peter Angular says, "As of today, what official class subclass character do you consider to be the best Gish?" He votes for College Sword of Bards, but he hasn't been able to play the Artificer Battlesmith yet. So,
Artificer's really good, but at the same time, it's also a half caster.
right.
So I also think College of Swords is really well put together as well, and the fact that you can use your weapons as your focus is nice as well. Someone had asked the question, Greg did, any idea when the next Dresden File books? Actually, there's two coming out, one in July and September, I believe.
Yep. That when you shared that interview that Jim Butcher had put out, like I was over the moon.
Did you watch the trailer yet?
I have not watched the trailer yet. I actually was going to watch it with the wife, and she's like, "No, I don't want any spoilers." So I've kind of been putting it off. Basically, we're looking at like 5.5 years since the last book,
Wow.
and it's kind of making me stir crazy. But when he's like, you know what? I haven't been total slack. I've been writing so much that we actually had to split it into 2 books.
Yeah.
And then he went on to say that it's actually changed the metric.
So there's going to be more books now or
So there's going to
something.
be more books. So we're looking at, as opposed to 23 books, we're probably looking at closer to 25. We just have to make sure it happens because he's been writing this series for a while, and I don't want to see a floundering like another particular popular author that's out there.
Well, he's relatively young and seems to be in fairly decent shape, where that other author is like old and not in good shape at all. And I also suspect they're spending all their writing money and HBO money on hookers and blow. So,
Well, there is that. Looking at him in the pictures from his earlier books versus seeing him, 15, 20 plus years later, he is definitely an older man. So it makes me worry that if we're waiting on another, 8 to 10 books, if we have another spectrum of, 3+ years in between them, that could absolutely put us in the possibility of not seeing an end. And with the world in crisis, I would hate to not know what the end of Dresden's story is.
oh, that's a good point too. Fragnar's like, when is the next Aeronauts Windless book coming out? That's another.
He's not going to start that until Battleground actually gets finished. So, I imagine if it's coming out in September, it's finished. But
Yeah.
he wasn't supposed to be working on Aeronauts Windless until Peace Talks was done. But Peace Talks is now split into Peace Talk and Battlegrounds.
Yeah, so apparently the peace talks did not go well.
Yeah, that's a spoiler when you get the name.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I am super excited. Looking across the the gaming table to my lovely picture of Dresden, flanked by or not flanked by, but sitting next to Drizzt. A lot of cool pictures over there. But yeah, definitely geared up for some more Dresden in the very near future.
Try to see if the person that asked about first time ding, if they asked their specific question or not. I do not
With
see it.
Sun Kinesis, I haven't seen anything else show up since they asked.
So William wants to know, what are the main areas I should have in my city? Honestly, like I base that on like I would base that on like a session 0 and let your players know they're going to be in a city, see what kind of characters they build, how they connect their characters, and where they think their characters would hang out. That's what I think the main areas should be.
So I think a couple things to to really look at is you want to offer at least two taverns so that when something bad happens at one, they've got somewhere else to go to. Because if it's like any of the games that Dave and I have been in regularly, something bad is eventually going to happen, and they're going to need somewhere else to go. Um, you want to have a couple staples. What kind of merchants are going to be there? Do you have a smith that's ready to go? What do you have in the way of churches? You don't want to go crazy, but what is the predominant religion? Having a handful of these things that are not fully fleshed out and ready to go, but just kind of put together piecemeal so that you've got something in your back pocket when those players ask. Um, Frag says another Codex Alera series would be a possibility. Jim did say that he wants to do his own like kind of Lord of the Rings epic, which was not
Sword and
Codex
Pony,
Alera.
I believe, is what he calls them.
What?
Sword and Pony books is, I believe, what he calls them.
Kind of. So like that's his creme de la creme, the thing that he really wants to be able to do, but with so many other book series that he's already working on, it's it's one of those things that we hope it happens. I loved Codex Alera. I thought it was fantastic. Rather than go in a new direction, I'd love to see where that world goes. um, you know I would love to see, do they eventually deal with the problems that kind of arose with the end of that story, or does it do we just is that just left to our imaginations and whatnot? So I definitely think there's still more story there, even if Jim feels that story is kind of done.
So, Sunken Seas, I want to set up an encounter with my friend's first game. The end goal for this session is for him to find an item that relays the overall main plot. I want them to venture through a forest, going to a swamp, and take out a bandit camp to get that MacGuffin. So, it very much sounds like you've got it worked out, really. It's just like, how do you get them to go to the bandit camp? And, the best way to do that is if you can make that personal for them. If you know your players and you know that they'll just take whatever hooks you give them, then that makes it really easy as well. You just got to, knowing your players is very helpful for that.
So
I believe.
using that, I would have an encounter in town. That may or may not be combat, but leads them into the direction of the swamp. I would put some kind of cool skill challenge in the swamp. Something, whether it's a navigation issue or some other kind of humanoid or monster that's there that they have to kind of think their way past as opposed to fight. And then you actually got the combat being the bandit camp itself. You could approach that from a spectrum of, well, is there more of them than you? So you have to do things differently. Whether you have to sneak in and fight a little bit but not make too much noise. Those things are wind up being a lot of fun. Or it could be, all right, the band, they have to wait until some of the bandits leave, and then you can kind of go in, take them out quickly, get the thing and go. And then you have the possibility of these other bandits to be a threat later on, which is always great to have. Not so much a reoccurring villain, but if those bandits are more of a nuisance that never really go away, you have something that as a DM is in your back pocket when you need an extra encounter. Oh yeah, I can pull out those the black bear bandits, and they're gonna blah blah blah. Those things are always great to have.
Yeah, I keep reading the things that Sunken Seas wants to do. It sounds like this should, like, getting to the bandit camp should take a while, and like they're gonna need to be a little bit higher level for because it's only a couple. It's only a couple players. He wants his bandits to ride dinosaurs.
Bandits riding Velociraptor sounds pretty damn awesome, but did you see Jurassic Park?
Yeah. It can be done. It can be done, but you can make them grind to it. Like if you have them, have the bandits kidnap somebody that's important to them or important to the town or whatever, and they go on a quest to get the bandits back, and it takes a little while, and they have to go through your forest and your swamp for a bit, so they level up when they finally get there. That would probably be a better way to go. And also, you can have the bandits kind of do things that mess with them, which kind of leads me into Heather's question, and that was about favorite villains that we've created. I've got like 3 that kind of stand out. Pardon me. So for me, in the Scarlet Sisterhood, there were 2 of them, and one of them was the Monarch, which was basically a drug dealer that would imprison and enslave troglodytes and basically milk the troglodytes for their stench glands to create a drug, which was kind of funny. But also, one of the characters in that game was married, and her father-in-law became one of the main protagonists as well for that game. So, and because he was a Fey Warlock that tried to skip out on the deal. So they had to kind of figure that out, and he was kind of offering up his children over time to kind of fulfill the deal so he wouldn't have to pay up. Well, one of those children would have been one of his granddaughters, which was, the player's daughter. So she was definitely not into that. And there was like a bunch of secrets and stuff that they had to uncover. I would say that and my Pretty Boy Necromancer that I introduced in a game with Ted and the crew like 20 years ago.
So it depends upon whether you're talking about, the overall impact versus just things that you thought were really cool. I made a Death Tyrant who I had a lot of fun with. I made this really bizarre lair because beholders, kind of fly and hover. They didn't really have a ground to play with when they kind of went after him. So his lair was this basically series of it was like more than 9 spherical rooms that were all connected via tunnel, and he would just be able to float along through them, and made the fight a little bit more interesting and challenging, because if they got knocked off of their flying mount, or if their mount was killed outright, they could just fall, and who knows how far they were going to fall. And I had actually made I made a mini for the Death Tyrant that I thought was very fun. I gave him unique magic items and stuff that was in the lair, so it was definitely a lot built into him. But there was, beyond lair, there wasn't a whole interlocking story that they were going on. They were just seeking any old Death Tyrant, and he worked. My overall villain in the last game that I ran, he was super smart and was kind of leading the players on throughout the entire campaign, or at least 10 of the 12 sessions. So it was very interesting to kind of almost railroad them through this whole thing, but it was only because he was laying these clues and these things, and even though they wanted him dead, he was arrogant and whatnot, like so many bad guys are. And I was like, yeah, you're never really going to take me out. So all the times that they fought him, they never actually killed him. And it was just really great to just be like, all right, you guys don't really have a thinker in the party. So therefore there was no one to really put the pieces of the puzzle together and try to outwit him.
So I think that was our last question for this evening. We will be back next Monday, same time. We'll be doing these while everyone's cooped up for however long that takes for us to get through them all. Like I said, we're looking at doing the live streams again, which we do them 12 p.m. Eastern time is when we've been doing them. And with that, it'll just be me and whatever guest I find that wants to come on, hang out, and talk about D&D and other role-playing games. Or other cool nerdy stuff. Who knows what we'll end up with? We've had some really different guests when we've done them in the past. We did it for like a full year, so we can see. And we're also open to suggestions, as well as if there's anyone in particular you would like to see us have on, reach out to them and let them know. Sometimes that makes it a little bit easier. And with that, until next time, stay nerdy.
Hey, nerdy.